age pension plan structure we had, you can't do that because you're obligating yourself to this whole group of retirees out there that you're going to continue to pay pensions to, and your profits aren't keeping up with it when Toyota's coming in and eating your lunch and everything, and so you end up going bankrupt. Likewise, I think the Army's going to have to look at that and say, how long can we afford to give somebody the option of getting 20 years and retiring, and then we pay them health care and pension plan basically forever. So this continuum of service is kind of intriguing to everybody, of being able to say in your military career, with the Generation Xers or whatever we call them now, that they move back and forth. So you get a soldier who comes on active duty, he's there for 4 or 5 years and says, hey, I want to go take a turn in the civilian community. He goes out there for 2 or 3 years or whatever, and then he says, hey, I want to go back to active duty now. And then, you know, so he flows back and forth as his lifestyle allows him to do it. If we're going to do that, and we're going to use that as a model, then we've got to look at portability of health care and portability of retirement, so that your retirement stays with you. And so that, I don't know if it's a 401k or I don't know what it looks like in the future, but it's something to say that, yeah, if you go over here to the civilian community, you continue to accrue retirement in some kind of a plan, and then if you come back to the military, it continues to go with you. So I don't know what that looks like, but I agree with you. If we're going to expect people to go back and forth, and to your point, at Procter & Gamble, my P&G, now I will tell you this, P&G was one of the, they never had a pension plan. They always had a profit sharing type of 401k type plan from the inception of the company, because they said, the guys were wise enough to say, when a person leaves P&G, we don't want them to have, or the company to have any obligation to them. And so we had a profit sharing plan. You take the profits of the company and buy stock in the company, you put that in your account, and when you leave the company, that goes with you. That model kind of works, because when I left P&G and came back over to the active duty side, I brought my P&G retirement plan with me. Now the Army's not paying into it, that's a separate retirement plan, but at least I've got that with me and I'm accruing something else. So I understand exactly what you're saying. We've got to figure out, if we're going to require people or expect people to move back and forth, how do they maintain health coverage, and how do they maintain some kind of retirement plan that goes with it. It's good. You got it. I don't have the solution. But in this continuum of service we're talking about, one of the things too that I'm pushing real hard, I'll give you this with the chief, is we got to eliminate all these different duty statuses we got. There ought to be, just in my opinion, there ought to be 3 statuses. You're on active duty, you're an active reserve, or you're in an inactive reserve. That's it. And so if you're full-time, you're an active duty soldier, treated as an active duty soldier, managed as an active duty soldier with all the same promotion timelines, school opportunities, selections, and everything that goes with it. And then if you drop into the active reserve status, you drop, and now you're managed under the reserve management system. That would allow us, again, to take a person and you say, I need a full-time S3. Okay. Army, give me one. Well, we got a guy that just came out of Iraq with 3rd Infantry Division. He's on his 2nd tour in Iraq, so he's a great candidate because he's got the experience, plus he needs the dwell time. So we're going to put him in your unit to do that. Or we say to you, are you willing to come on tour for 3 years? You're a TPU soldier. Sure. Okay, we're going to put you on active duty for 3 years. At the end of that 3 years, I'm going to say, you want to stay on active duty? Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, you're going to Fort Hood, first Cav Division. And that's your next assignment. So get the statuses eliminated. To do that, though, this portability of retirement health care got to go with it. Oh yeah, yeah. No, I got it.
We'll take one more question.
All right. I'm sorry, I've talked too long.
Yes, sir. Gary Cleveland. For retention of not just officers, but I know they're enlisted NCOs that fall into this, we're putting a lot of professional development demands on them, such as the ILE course. There's talk of the Advanced Operational Warfighting course becoming mandatory. But they're still doing their drills, and they're seeing the active side, getting paid to do all of this. Is there any move to, besides just giving them retirement points once they complete these courses, to actually give them paid points to attend these classes? It's a big strain on a number of families.
Yeah. Great point, great idea. Is there a move yet? Not yet. Or is it being kicked around yet? It depends on who you talk to. If you talk to me, I'll say, great, we ought to do it. If you talk to the budget weenies, they'll tell you can't afford it, can't afford it. Point being, though, back to you. What I keep saying is, look, if you want an operational reserve, which is, the Chief of Staff of the Army and everybody has said, if we're going to fight a long war, we've got to have the reserve, and they've got to be part of the operational force, then you're going to have a bill on the table that you've got to pay. Because you can't do this with the same budget that you've had in the past. And if you're going to ask more and more of our soldiers, then you're going to have to pay them to do that. And to your point, I've said that, and this is part of what we talked about on this reset thing. Listen, if you're going to bring a soldier back after being gone for a year or longer, and then you're going to tell him he's going to have to take more of his time to do his schooling and everything else and all, you better figure out a way to reward him for doing that. Otherwise, we're going to be asking too much of him. You're going to have to give him some kind of incentive or something to say, hey, this is worth it to you, because he's going to say, I can't give it to you. Active Army is going through the same struggle, not on the pay side, but it's the same thing. Is how do we get the officer education requirements done in the op tempo we're in? And so one of the ideas was, well, let's just take CGSC and let's make that a distributed learning process. And so we're going to be able to tell a soldier, great, hey, welcome back from Iraq. If you're in the 1st Cav Division, great news, you don't have to leave Fort Hood to go to CGSC. We're going to bring it right here to you while you're getting ready to go back to Iraq. You know, and we said, you can't do that. You can't come in here and lay that on top of what the soldier's already being expected to do. You can't. You're going to have to give him some time to get his education done, while you got to give him time to get back into the reintegration with his family and whatever, or we're asking too much of him. Same thing applies to reserve in a different format, but yeah, if we're going to come back and ask the soldier to go back to school, we're either going to have to pay him, or we're going to have to give him the time outside of what he's doing. Because if I come back and say, okay, go back to your unit, go back to your regular drilling, go get your ILE or whatever done at the same time, the guy's going to say, you know, when do I get a break? Now, either I can pay him for doing that on top of what he's already doing, or I can pay him for doing that in lieu of. And say, okay, you don't have to drill your unit for the first 6 months or whatever it is, you go get your school done. And so I'm going to pay you each month, and I'm going to trust that you're getting your schooling done while you're doing it. And it's a good point. I mean, we're going to have to do something. We just can't continue to layer on more and more requirements.
General, we want to thank you for coming today and taking so much of your valuable time to help us understand things better. And we have a little presentation from the Civil Affairs Association. Thank you, sir.